Hello and welcome to Back to School, an ET Now Diwali special, wherein we do things with a bit of a difference this time around. We get 4 market guests. They're sitting on the podium with me right now to talk to the smartest B-school minds in Mumbai and give them a flavor of what they believe is in store for the economy and the capital market. The gentlemen who are sitting on the dais with me need no introduction. Ramdev Agarwal of Motilal Oswal, Arun Kataria of Religare, Ashok Wadhwa of Ambit, and Nirmal Jain of Alacas. Thanks so much, gentlemen, for joining in. Let me start with my extreme right. Ramdev, what everybody was talking about, a big event, and that is the US elections, they are out of the way. A lot of expectations about what the administration does next and thereby the impact on the global economy. Your initial thoughts?
Yeah, so good thing is that continuation is there of the old regime. So we are not going to see a lot of policy hiccups, and so not a lot of speculation about what would be the new policies, and hence that US recovery, which is I think one of the biggest thing which we have seen in last 12 to 18 months is the recovery of US housing markets, and led by that US economic recovery, and collapse in the energy prices in US thanks to the shale gas. So how the collapse in the energy prices in US and technology innovation dominance of America and recovery of US home sales, I mean all these things, and the new regime for next 4 years, I think it is going to be positive for the global economy and hopefully for us also.
Tarun, what do the capital markets look forward to? Because there is a lot that's happening and a lot is being spoken about what the US would do, what China would do, what happens to the European economy, and thereby the impact on the capital markets as a whole. What do capital markets look forward to, say from the next 3 to 6 months perspective?
I think the capital markets are looking forward to more liquidity, because I think you've seen with QE3 that sort of got put into place some months ago, you've seen the emerging markets come back actually quite strong, and you can look across the emerging markets. So I think the other outcome, obviously, of Obama remaining is that Bernanke stays. His strategy of making sure that short rates, long rates continue to be very low and continue to be an attractive base to build from, I think that continues. And I think liquidity in the market stays. So you'll find generally a level of buoyancy in the markets over the next few months. I think what's also happening at the same time is China is now finally starting to recover. So if we look at the PMI data out of China, the PMI services number is still 53, 54, so well above the 50 number. The manufacturing has sort of moved up 2 big figures in the last month or so. So I think if you see China recovering, I think the world generally is on a path to recovery.
Great. And Ashok, there is something else as well which is very important happening with China, a change of guard out there, which I think even you endorse the view is maybe a lot quieter, but probably a whole lot more important as well.
Yeah, I genuinely believe that US elections are over-dramatized to some extent, overplayed out, but the Chinese change in guard, which happens once in 10 years, is a significant shift, not just in terms of thinking, new leadership, but historically coming out with policy definitions which are not necessarily just a consistency of what has happened in the past. So I do believe that the change in guard in China is significant and more relevant to the world at this point of time than any change in the United States. China, if China was to announce some sort of a stimulus and support growth in their own consumption at this point of time, if China was to create mechanism for greater utilization of their capacity, I think that's a far more significant event in terms of just pulling the whole demand cycle to a different level across the world.
Nirmal, your thoughts? And does a change of guard happen in India in 2013 as opposed to 2014?
I think, yeah, but as Ashok pointed out, that China is more important than US, and I would say that what happens in Indian politics is even more important for us.
Sure, of course.
And change of guard in 2013 cannot be ruled out, and let's see how November session starts off. Because politically, Congress may feel that it may be better for them to prepone the election because BJP is in complete assembles. I mean, they are not. They have their own problems now. So this may be a good time to get the coalition back in place. That is what Congress might think, and so that's in a way a risk as well as an opportunity. Risk because for 6 months there will be uncertainty, an opportunity because the uncertainty will be over after 6 months. And we have seen in last 20 or 30 years of our coalition politics, 20 years of coalition, that something emerges and that, this country runs despite government. And therefore, once that uncertainty is out and people look forward to 5 years of stable political government, then people, I think, will start looking back. And interestingly, India, despite whatever we talk about our political and economic problems, but if you look at BRIC countries or emerging markets, including China, India still signs out as a better investment destination. Because China has, although they might be picking up, but still there are growth numbers of 7.5%, 8% vis-a-vis 10% plus. Infrastructure there is saturated, that doesn't need more investment. So as an investment destination for funds and the savings that are generated around the globe, India is preferred destination, and with some political stability we can attract capital, and that is what we have seen in this year.
Okay, before we throw it open to the audience, Ramdev, I know you're a firm believer of the India story. You've said it on a number of counts over the last 1 year. You believe in how the rural demographics will come into play. India will stand to gain over the next 2.5 years and all. You believe that even if there is a change of guard or no change of guard, even if there are early elections or elections happen on time, we are scheduled or we are slated to move higher from where we are right now, not just for the capital markets, but as an economy.
Clearly, the story of nation is always bigger than the story of these few parties fighting for 2-3 years. So clearly the story can slow down for some time if you don't manage it properly. But just some numbers, like global economy is at about $70 trillion. The global population is about $7 trillion, 7 billion. So you're talking about $10,000 per capita income for the world as a whole. We are at about $1,200-1,300. So do we look like a bunch of people who will stay forever in this globalizing world at this level? There's enough knowledge and enough practitioners and enough what you call globalizing forces of capital flows now particularly, which will come in here and make things happen. Look at current year. We had the worst possible headlines in the last 10-15 years, and yet you got $18 billion of inflow. So I think it's a very interesting times, and my sense is our own savings rates are about 30%. You add your current account deficit about 3%. So 32-33% of sustained investment rate is given. So 6-7% growth should not be very difficult, even with the challenging times in Delhi.
Tarun, you second that? I mean, FI flows have been promising. Somehow a few other key sectors wherein maybe flows were needed were probably not as great. But do you think that things would stabilize even on that front? And are you as optimistic as Ramdev is?
There are two parts to this. One, you need to separate the markets from the macro. Right? The markets are usually well ahead, perhaps overshoot both ways. I have a fundamentally the same view, but I think India, and this has been our perennial problem, is India is always underperforming its potential. So yes, 5.5% is a number that inherently there is momentum with the 1.2 billion people. Officially. You will grow, officially, you will grow at 5.5-6%. But that, to my mind, is massively underachieving not only our potential, but what we actually need to do to take 1 billion or 800 million people out of abject poverty.
Sure.
So it's not about 5.5. Can we, on a sustainable basis, get to 8 or 9%? And currently, I see that being very, very difficult.
Nirmal, what's your sense? Let's assume we close the year with 5.5, quarter to 6. Let's assume that on the last day of February, it's not a very disappointing fiscal deficit number that the finance minister throws out as well. You think all of those things would be liked by the markets, and next year, assuming again, too many assumptions, but assuming that the elections don't come into play and therefore there are no overhanging, daggers that people have to watch out for, you think we are slated higher?
Yeah, a market is driven by expectations versus reality, and I think more or less whatever you and I are discussing is factored in by the market. So market isn't expecting GDP growth to be significantly higher than 5.5, 6. And all the analysts monitor it on a month-to-month basis and quarter-to-quarter basis. So I don't think that by itself will make much of difference to the market. But market always, as my co-panelists pointed out, it always runs on sentiment and expectations and not on the post-mortem of whatever has happened. I mean, that is relevant, but only to project what's going to happen and not by itself. And therefore, what is done in the budget to the fiscal deficit, what happens on the policy front, what happens on the political front, these are a lot more important factor than the actual GDP numbers that we see in the month of February.
Okay, let's throw the floor open for questions. Anybody who has a question, please raise your hand. Okay, I see a number of hands already. We can probably start off with the gentleman in the green shirt with glasses. Yes, please. Stand up. Your name, please, and who are you addressing the question to?
I'm addressing the question to Mr. Nilmal Jain. And you told about, policy and expectations. Today, the government, that is the finance ministry and the RBI are at loggerheads with each other. We saw it in the recent events. So in such a scenario, what do you think the capital markets should expect? As in, will they reconcile, or what does it mean for the market in general?
Probably they have the best relation as opposed to what they had earlier. But
the positive aspect of this is that it's a democracy which is functioning, and the central bank is autonomous. So, we should look at it from a constructive point of view, and maybe from foreign investors' point of view, when we go and convey the message, this is a more positive message. One factor about, say, India and China, we often, compare India, China, potential versus. So, people say that, okay, India's growth is despite the government. As everybody said, that our potential is much higher. And China's growth is because of the government, because people have become less entrepreneurial because of, decades and centuries of, authoritarian government. But another important thing, what we have seen, that when you go to foreign investors in the world, the Chinese are always positive, patriotic, and always optimistic about what's going to happen inside the country. But India is a nature of democracy, that we become critical of ourselves a lot more. So I think that RBI has not followed what government wanted to do is a small matter. And if you have been reading newspapers and following, then RBI has indicated that they might do the rate cut in January. So a rate cut being deferred from, say, November to January is not such a big deal to my mind, as long as it happens. But of course, if RBI is autonomous, that is good for the banking sector, that is good for the monetary policy, and we may or may not agree with their policy decisions, but in a way, the judiciary, the democracy, and everything is functioning very well, is positive from a longer term perspective.
Okay, further questions. The gentleman in the second row. Yes, please.
Good afternoon. My question is to Ramdev Agrawal. So in the last 2-3 months, the market has slightly risen, mainly because of the various government reforms and other such things. So is this bullishness actually happening, or backed by fundamentals, or it is just the market sentiments and investor sentiments?
So, in the markets, why it has moved, there is always good explanation. The foreigners came, bought $18 billion worth of stuff, all the domestics sold. There is no IPOs. So, clearly the demand is more than supply. So, markets clearly rose. But of course, the news flow which changed the opinion about the things which were going on, because markets don't go up or down because of buying and selling. For every buyer there is always a seller. Market goes up, or stock price goes up or down purely because the opinion changes. And that's why when Obama wins or loses or whatever happens, next day markets open at 5% or 10% higher, because no buying selling has happened. The opinion has changed about the stock or the market. So always markets, stocks move purely because of the change of the opinion. Now in last two months, what happened was, the moment Mr. Mukherjee went to Rashtrapati Bhavan and TMC things got resolved, there was a move about, there is a wholesale reforms, things were announced. But more than what is the substance of the reform, the mindset change in Delhi, that yes, they are willing to act. I think that changed the mindset here among the investors, that things will happen. They're not sleeping, and things cannot go on like this. So that change of the mind, slightly making optimist kind of thing. So you see all the markets, if you look at the automobile market or consumer markets, October was a brilliant month. So, there is a kind of change of sentiment in the last 1 or 2 months, and that reflected in the marketplace. Now, whether it continues, it all depends on, the actions of RBI, actions happening in the global markets, and what is the behavior of the FI. So there are a whole lot of things which is going to determine. And one of the things is that in this quarter, we saw the earnings, the earnings announcement is still on for this quarter. And that earnings announcement has been which is the real cornerstone of any stock market, has been brilliant, in the sense that better than expected. And I think that has also provided some kind of stability to the market.
Okay, we'll take, since you've taken the mic in your hand, please stand up.
Yeah, this question is to Mr. Tarun Kataria. It is somewhat related to the pharma industry. Recently, in year 2012, many multinational companies, the patents will be getting expired soon. So, as we all are talking about the growth in the GDP, so how will this affect the growth in the GDP because of the expiration of various patents of the multinationals? The export will increase. So, how much percent of the GDP will constitute with this pharma sector?
I mean, it's a very good question, but to my mind, pharma in itself is a very small component of GDP. And then when you go from patented drugs to basically a generic version of it, you're actually going down the GDP curve, right? So to my mind, it changes almost nothing from a GDP perspective. But from an M&A perspective, and I'm sure Ashok will have a comment on that as well, creates a whole bunch of M&A opportunities in the pharma sector, and that's really what we're seeing. So we're seeing a lot of consolidation in generic pharma because there are so many of them, and they're not big enough to have scale to compete and to survive over a longer period of time. So I think that's more of the pharma story than necessarily saying because Pfizer's Lipitor is going off patent, which was a $2 billion a year drug, therefore India's GDP is going to go up. I don't think it makes a big difference. There are, as they say, many other fish to fry, including getting our infrastructure right, which will create momentum for GDP growth. But it's a very interesting way that you're thinking about it, but I don't think it moves the needle.
I've got 2 minutes. Last couple of questions, quick answers. We'll have him first because I promised him that.
My question is for Mr. Agarwal. So you mentioned that in October the automobile sector performed fairly well. But given the recent spree of events, the labor unrest we had, and another automobile giant facing the same, and there are MNCs who have already tied up, have JVs now, and some trying to venture into the country. Where do you see the automobile sector heading towards, and how do you, our country is known for the labor force, cheap labor force. So how do you think that the automobile sector will be impacted, and will there be a considerable impact on the economy or not?
Automobile, as it is known, is almost the largest industry, organized industry in the world. In terms of at least sales and value added. So in India also it is not going to be any different. We'll need, after roti kapda makan, you need gadi. So for personal transport, for moving the goods from one place to other, you need massive amount of transport. So as far as the demand for automobiles is concerned, it's maybe a month or two it could be cyclical or whatever. There could be issues, but per se demands are going to go multifold from here. And in some of the niches we have created a global competitive advantages, like say two-wheeler and all. The kind of price $700-800 you can produce top class motorcycle, and you can ship it anywhere in the world at highest possible margin. So I think you can leverage the advantage of scale in India. So I think the possibility for India in next 10-15 years in automobiles, and apart from the demand, the beauty is that in every segment you have one or two players. It's a very concentrated kind of segment. In trucks you have just two guys, third, fourth are trying. Motorcycles or scooters, which is a kind of millions of bikes and scooters, just about three. We used to call it 2.5 players. So now the third player has come, Honda, Hero and Bajaj. So in cars you have 50% market share with Maruti. In tractors you have 50% market share with Mahindra & Mahindra. So this kind of, you have massive growth ahead and consolidation. So it's a perfect place for kind of making a lot of money.
Just a final thought from each of you before we wrap up the show. Nirmal, I'll start off with you. So based on all that we've seen, and it's pretty much a repetition of how we started the show, but your basic sense, we are right now in November 2012, December 2013, or possibly March 2014. Do you think things will improve significantly from where we are right now for the economy and for the capital markets?
I'm quite an optimist, so I think they will improve for both, for the economy and for the capital market. Very quickly, why? For the economy, they can't get worse, and we've already seen that government has realized this, and they started moving in the right direction. And for the capital market also, because the liquidity conditions are good, commodity prices are unlikely to go up further, which puts pressure on our deficit. And interest rate cut will happen sometime soon, and I think all these factors will contribute to the rally in the market.
Ashok, you mentioned GST being the single largest factor. Assuming that also comes into play, your thoughts on what we do over the next 18 months?
I'm generally optimistic both for the economy as well as capital markets, with two caveats. One, we do need to have a parliament operate, because when the parliament doesn't operate, the country's critical bills come to a standstill.
And there's no certainty it'll operate this time.
So that's why, as I said, we do need to see our parliament operate. Then if you have differences of opinion, sort it out on the floor of the parliament, but we do need to see our parliament operate. And two, should there be a midterm or a pre-14 election, there would be an element of uncertainty as to how the power base will fructify, and that has the ability to dislocate any growth or in economy or in capital markets for a period of time. But for these two factors, continue to be optimistic.
Great. Tarun, your thoughts?
Yeah, I'd largely agree with that. I think with the exception of sort of event risk, and I would say what Ashok said is actually event risk, I would be constructive. I think the market can very easily be 10 or 15% up from here by the end of next year. The macroeconomy, I reckon, will be slightly better. So if you sort of look at what fiscal 13 holds, which I think will be, let's say, 5.6%. Can we be north of 6% for fiscal 14? The answer is yes. But I think the point is, whether it's for India, whether it's for the planet, as I say, what we saw for the 15 years leading up to 07 will not be the 15 years from today.
Okay.
So we should be, should get used to lower GDP growth because, there's political dysfunction around the world.
We're not sounding like the argumentative Indians, Ramdev, and I'm sure your answer is pretty much in the same lines because you are constructive in your thoughts for the economy and the markets over the next 12 months.
Yeah. See, one of the things is that we don't have political consensus, and yet this country has to go on. So there is another master called Forex market. So rupee dollar parity decides a lot of things here. The moment rupee crosses 56, things start happening in Delhi. So my sense is that we have a master which is invisible, but which is very, very effective, because we are very globalized. 40% of the trade economy is based on trade, and this is one master where even if politicians want to control, they can't control. So if they don't act properly, if they don't bury their differences, Forex market will act, and rupee will go to 60, and then you see the chaos breaking up. So I think it will not happen. I hope it doesn't happen.
Yes, all of us hope that.
It quickly goes to 57 so that Delhi starts acting very quickly again.
Okay. Just a final thought, and the benefit of that thought goes to Nirmal because he studied in the same campus that we are studying right now. Any advice that you have for the capital market students?
For capital market students?
Yes. Okay. I caught you unawares.
I'll just try and summarize in my experience of last 25 years. In fact, I passed out from NM College almost 25, 26 years back. There's a great career from a longer term perspective, but it is for those who have as Peter Lynch or somebody said it very nicely, that investment requires more stomach than brains. So if you can handle volatile world and the cyclical changes, then only get into this and look forward to a good career, but a bumpy ride. Is not going to be very steady growth kind of a career.
We'll just end with a small exercise that happened to me when we did our B school. And the question is to all of you guys, how many of you think you can prescribe a medicine without getting a medical degree? Raise your hands. You can. Okay, 2 or 3. Great. Please don't do it. How many of you think you can fly a plane without actually learning aviation? Great. How many of you think you can invest in the capital markets without getting the degree that you're studying for? And yet, all of you are here studying for the same degree. Well, education never hurts. But on that note, thank you so much for joining here. A round of applause for our panelists out here. They have spent their time to speak to you guys. Precious time, I might add. And for all the television viewers who joined us as well on this very special episode of Back to School and ET Now Diwali special, thanks so much for watching.